Hi everybody, Melissa from melissaversusfibromyalgia.com here. I hope you are well. I have a coffee and a few minutes, and I was thinking that it was about time we had a bit of a catch up. A lot has been going on in my life and in my health journey. It's been a really crazy year. So I have been doing loads better. I had the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome under control. I was doing really well. I was happy with my functionality. I was happy with improvements, especially coming out of that first year with my son. My fourth baby was a tricky sleeper. He woke up every 1 to 2 hours for a good 6 or 7 months and didn't sleep through the night until he was like 16 or 17 months old. So despite that, I was kind of coming out of the funk, and I met a new doctor, and she put me on quetiapine, a low dose, and I can sleep now. Not every day, but generally I can go to sleep pretty quick, and I'll lose about an hour over the night awake. But I can tend to get around 7 hours of sleep now, and my deep and REM sleep are often in the normal range. Last night was weird. I did everything the same, except didn't really control my back and neck pain very well. It's flaring up because my youngest one had a fever. So for 4 days straight, I was basically holding him. He wouldn't let me put him down, and so my neck and back are very mad. And I did some like rolling out with my peanut ball, but I didn't take any medicine or do anything proper to manage the pain. And so I think that really interrupted my sleep. So I had 3% deep sleep last night, which doesn't make today feel very nice. So I'm looking forward to our rest in the afternoon. But on average, my sleep has improved. And there was a little bit of grief at the beginning with that, because a lot of things, particularly the Shine protocol from Dr. Teitelbaum, they put such a thing on sleep, right? And same with the Fibro Manual from Dr. Lipton. They say once you sleep, then you can start to get better. And so I was like, well, I was so much better. Imagine what it'll be like when I sleep. And it's better, but not that much better. But unfortunately, this year we've had a resurgence of my periods. So I've always had very heavy, painful periods, and the doctors have kind of known about it, but always dismissed it as, oh well, you have fibromyalgia, dysmenorrhea, or heavy, painful periods. It's just a thing. And they sent me along the way with different things. In my 20s, they put me on birth control. But when I got off birth control, my whole health got better. I don't think manipulating my hormones helps me at all. But I was getting by with Ponstan. And so before my fourth baby, my periods weren't too bad at all for me. So I was on Ponstan and I was managing. So it was not fun, and they were still heavy, but I was managing. But I've never had great iron levels. And this year, since my periods returned, so they returned after a year, like my son was over a year old, but I was still nursing. So at first, for the first few periods, they were so painful and so heavy. There were like 3 days I could not function. A couple of them I could do nothing more than breathe through the pain, and the only thing I had to compare it to was labor. It was that painful. And by the third one, I was like, this isn't right. So I went to the doctor and documented everything, and she said she suspects endometriosis. And we started me on tranexamic acid, which is something to reduce the flow of your periods, just to reduce that heaviness of the loss, which can apparently help with the pain. And we put me on a high dose, slow release naproxen, and then I had Norflex, a muscle relaxant. So naproxen in the evening, the muscle relaxant in the morning, and then Panadol ongoing. I really did start to feel like I was rattling when I was taking all of those things, but it was okay. And so I was getting by, but each month it was just so painful, and it was changing so much. And they said to me that the public system is probably not going to see you until you try all the things, and that means medicine management, and so that means birth control. And I explained that birth control doesn't go very well for me, and that the mini pill especially seems to not really agree. But I turned up to the doctor in so much pain I was shaking, and she said, look, Cerazette could help, and that's a mini pill. It's a newer generation mini pill, and it can help a lot of people. And she said I could start it immediately, and it might help as soon as the next period. So like it might stop ovulation, therefore I wouldn't have ovulation pain, and then I might have, less of a period. So despite not really wanting to, I gave it a go because I really needed to be not in so much pain, and I needed to be functional, right? I've got 4 small children and a job. I need to be functional. And what I've noticed is that the periods really impact the chronic pain and fatigue. So I'm having pain for a few days before the period starts, the bad period, and then for like a week after, I just feel hungover. So it's like chronic fatigue syndrome just goes through the roof. And so my main worry is about moving my baseline. And my biggest worry is that my baseline won't come back, right? That's always your worry. If you improve, you know, there's something in the back of your mind that you could go to what you were. I don't dwell on it too much, but that was in the back of my mind. But I endured 3 months, and that did not agree with me. The mini pill made me feel tired. It made me feel sad. So not depressed, just really sad. Like in the first trimester of pregnancy, you know how they characterize women as being really teary and just crying all the time? It was like that. I just cried, and I'm not really much of a crier, and my breasts hurt, and I just felt uncomfortable, and my periods stopped being reliable. So they'd be around the time they were expected, but it would always be different. So I didn't know exactly when it was coming. And they're so bad now that I can't do anything. I can't plan anything because I will have to cancel it when it's happening. Like I just cannot move, especially for those worst days. But I got to 3 months and I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't feel right. So I stopped it. And that was right when I finally saw a private gynecologist. So my doctor and I agreed that I would get an opinion from a private gynecologist, although it was very expensive. And because we run a public system, and I've had fibromyalgia for a very, very long time, I don't have private insurance because that would always be excluded. But in this situation, with the public system so backed up after COVID, like they are so badly backed up, it's not funny, that we thought an opinion from the specialist would help. So I met the specialist, and she said, yep, definitely, it's a good idea to be off that birth control. It's obviously not helping. You gave it a good go. So obviously, birth control is not for me. Obviously, Mirena is not for me. I have pelvic pain. I have difficulty with that area. It's almost guaranteed, right, that I will have it'll be hard to put it in. I'll experience the cramps, probably won't work, or the hormones won't agree with me, and then I'll just end up taking it out, and the whole thing will be extremely stressful and worrying for my other conditions. So she suggested a laparoscopic hysterectomy and has referred me back to the public system with that recommendation. The public system is very backed up, so I may get an appointment with the gynecologist in the public hospital in any time in months. So I'm hoping kind of in my head that maybe I'll have had the operation in a year. Meanwhile, I'm living like this and doing my best. But I'm sharing this because I think more people need to talk about it. I never defined my periods as heavy to doctors because they defined heavy as changing pads like every hour or 2 or something. And the way that they defined it didn't make sense for me, because what happens for me is I have an irritable bladder, so I go to the toilet frequently during my period, and then I lose a lot of blood in the toilet. Now, I'm sorry if you're squeamish, but we've got to talk about this because people need to know what is normal and not. When your toilet looks like a murder scene after you've gone, it's a heavy period. And so I think that's really important to know so I would sit down and it would feel like I was weeing, but it was just blood. And a lot of blood would come out and clots would come out. But sometimes it's really hard to figure out the size, because sometimes they ask you what size the clots are and you're like, I don't know, it's dispersed in the water. But if it looks like too much, it probably is, but that's a good indicator. So even if they don't ask you directly, you can say this is what's happening, and then they might be able to get a sense from that. So I think that's really important. I think endometriosis has a longer time of diagnosis than even fibromyalgia does. I'm 37 and I've only just got that word, and I've had heavy periods for my whole career of having periods, right? This is a long time. And this is another example of just things being chalked up to fibro. I'm not even sure at this point if I do have fibromyalgia. I don't have faith that any of the people who have thrown diagnoses at me really know anything about what I have, because if they had any kind of specialization in it, then maybe they would have had some kind of treatment recommendation. they don't. It's all been haphazard. You know, I have researched and taken the low-dose naltrexone to the doctor, and then they agreed. I'm really thankful for that, but I led that. And I'm just lucky that the doctor I've been seeing happened to treat people with ongoing insomnia and knew that quetiapine could help. So I'm thankful for that, but that wasn't really a specialty in fibromyalgia. And I think that's really important to make the distinction between chronic ongoing insomnia and the sleeplessness associated with fibromyalgia. I think it's really important to take all of it separately. So I'd encourage you to tease it all out. I'd encourage you to write it all down and ask questions and keep fighting for yourself, because when I look back at where I was, I'm a world away now. And it's really frustrating because it essentially means I've lost 20 years. 10 years getting worse and worse and worse, and then 10 years working on myself slowly and painfully. And now I'm kind of in this back and forward stage because of the endometriosis, because we don't really know. I mean, all of a sudden the chronic fatigue syndrome's in there. Who knows what is what, but we need to tease everything out. And unfortunately, if we haven't got a medical professional to do it, if you can't afford a coach, because there are now fibromyalgia coaches, these things didn't exist earlier in my journey, but if you can't afford those things, you've got to learn to tease it out yourself, and it's an ongoing and tiring battle. And that's why I share these things, in case anything I've learned helps you, in case what I'm saying resonates with you and you finally get the right way to say it so that your doctor understands. So I know this has been quite long, but I hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments or come along. I have a Facebook group, Yoga for the Chronic Life. I've been thinking about changing the name, but I haven't yet. Anyway, it's on Facebook. You can come and join, and you could ask some questions there and have a look around. But do get in contact if you need help, and do remember to write those things down and ask your doctor. Bye, guys.